Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being interested in AM FM, something that we've been working on for a long time. It's a really unique project. We're really glad that people are going to be able to experience something that we created. It's been a long time coming that I have been working for people in the coffee industry, and this kind of happened at the right time, at the right place with the right people.
Yeah.
And this has been something that I've been really excited about for a number of different reasons. So Josiah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your coffee experience,
Yeah.
your coffee walk,
My coffee walk.
your coffee walk.
My coffee walk, just to start from the beginning, I grew up around coffee. My parents drank coffee, church coffee. But, growing up, you had a bunch of vanilla, French vanilla creamer to it. So it was mostly
College coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when I went to school, we called it syrup coffee. It came from the machine. You press a button, it's like syrup and water. It was gross. So then I get, upside down caramel macchiatos from Starbucks. And this was my life with coffee. And it wasn't until I went to New York City on a mission trip there for about 6 weeks that I went to this coffee shop and I went to order coffee, and my friend was like, "Have you had a pour over?" And I said, "No." He goes, "You need to try it, and you need to try it just as is." I was like, "Okay." I had it, fell in love with coffee. I went home and bought myself a Chemex, and bought myself some coffee beans from it was Counterculture Coffee, and I've never tasted coffee. Like, it felt like I've tasted coffee for the first time. And ever since then, I've been into coffee. I worked at a bakery where I pulled my first shot ever in an espresso machine and made my first latte. And I applied to work at a coffee shop in the city. It's no longer here. And I didn't hear anything. And I went there every single day begging them to give me a job because I'm like, I want to be a barista. I want to know more about coffee. Like, it had that kind of effect on me. So, and then ever since then, I've been a barista. They gave me a job and it was great.
What kind of coffee culture have you seen evolve here
Yeah.
in Rochester from that? How many years ago was that? When did you start working?
So I got the job in Rochester 10 years ago off of Park Ave. It was Pour Coffee Parlor at the time. And that was my first experience with Third Wave working in that. And actually, the funny thing is, I didn't even start in coffee there, but I knew I was going to get there.
You had your foot in?
I had my foot in. I helped with stripping paint off a brick. Was like worst job I could have ever done. It was terrible, but then I was cooking in the kitchen, and then eventually one of the baristas quit, and I stepped up because I'm like, that's all I wanted to do. From that, I just have trained people on barista stuff at their home. They'll buy like a little espresso machine, and people always ask me questions about coffee. And the cool thing about coffee is you're always learning. And so even somebody who's just getting into coffee, I can learn something from, because they could become passionate about it as I am and was at the beginning of my coffee experience. And they could find new information that I haven't discovered yet. And it's a beautiful thing. And so the culture in Rochester, I noticed when I first got into coffee, it was tight-knit, family oriented, and community was a huge aspect. I mean, I think the entire point of the coffee cup was for community, to sit at a table and drink coffee with one another. And I don't know what has happened in the past 5 years, but it seems like there's division in coffee. Like, it's almost like they're like their own denominations. Like, there's this coffee over here and this coffee over here, but I don't like how they do that coffee and stuff like that. And Eric reached out to me in the summer, and I was working at another coffee shop at the time, and asked if I'd be interested in being a part of what's going on here. And I had to wrestle with it because it sounded like an awesome opportunity, and it is.
And you and I didn't really even know each other.
No.
Like, at that point.
No, not at all. And we had like 3 conversations, like,
Yeah.
here and there. And so then it came to the point, like, around November, I left that job. I was let go. Just nothing. It was nothing personal. It was a financial decision on that company. And I contacted Eric. I'm like, hey, I'm available if you still need something or need anything. And I think the heart and the vision that you have and AM/FM has is to build that community back. And I'm really passionate about being a part of the genesis of seeing that culture of coffee and just humanity and connecting with one another in community could blossom to a beautiful thing here, and not just like, hey, we just want to sell a product and try to, you know, yes, we want to sell a product, but we want to build community, and I think it's beautiful.
So it's interesting, like 2015 is roughly the same as the same time period where I got into coffee in general.
Yeah.
Now, with me, my first experience of coffee was third wave coffee.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any previous coffee drinking experience in there whatsoever. So interesting enough, I got connected with some people that I just enjoyed. It wasn't about coffee. It was people that I was drawn to. It was people that were magnetic, and I wanted to spend more time with those people. And those people happened to be coffee roasters, selling coffee, and I was all about what they were doing. And as our relationship grew more and more with them, I tried to see in any way I could support them in any way I could, like whether that's, shoveling off their steps before I came in and had a conversation in a coffee.
Yeah.
If it was helping them build something, if it was like looking out for spaces, if it was making upgrades, and eventually I got involved with them like on an actual building project, and that was kind of the first time that I was in.
Yeah.
And like you said, 2015, and in 2015, what I was hearing, and I didn't see it as much, was that with any kind of evolution of a scene where there's a purism to it, it's someone hears somewhere else in a bigger city where it works better, and they try this cafe out, and they try this culture out, and they see that if they're doing it this way, then we should do it this way. And I think what was happening is in these big cities where they would say, coffee is not about sugar. It's not about cream. It's not about anything. And where they could do that in a big city, they tried to transplant that idea and philosophy right here into Rochester.
Yeah.
And it was, and I don't fault anybody for trying this. I don't even fault anybody for being attracted to it.
Right.
It's when you don't realize that maybe that's not the way it's supposed to be, and have that realization where you admit, like, all right, how do I think about this differently? How do I change my mind?
Yeah.
But what I saw there, and I saw it happen in the cocktail community too.
Yeah.
Whereas like, oh, you want cream? That's for people that have crap taste.
Yeah.
Get out. Like, and that's such a contradiction to hospitality and community in general.
Yeah.
Where another really amazing thing that I experienced, because I wasn't there from the beginning when that was necessarily happening so much. My introduction was with this other group, and they had a really awesome philosophy to it. It was, we would like you to try this but before you do, why don't you just try it just straight? Because not many people have tried it straight.
Right.
And if you don't like it, well, and that was really attractive. And that was like that was the wide net. That was the open arms. That was the open doors for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that we've come from a place of where the philosophy was, very closed off, very, very niche, very unwelcoming, to a spot now where there can be some spots that are a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
But then there can be more that are on the other end of the spectrum. And really, as a community, you want to find a place for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You want to find places that will take everyone.
Yeah.
And then you also want places that are specialized for certain kinds of patrons, or for people that are looking for certain specific types of products. And so, like, the question is, where do we fit in, right?
Yeah.
Where do we fit in? And hopefully, something that you touched on earlier was, aside from product, we want to fit into a space where we are uniters and not dividers.
Yeah.
So I think that we saw a lot in 2020 and the years following COVID. Was everybody knows that there was a lot of polarization, but not to politicize coffee, because I'm not trying to, and I'm not trying to politicize anything we're doing here, but I think that we're all to a place now where we want to see people come back together.
Yeah.
We want to see people not necessarily all buy into the same ideas, but just be able to separate your relationships from your maybe like dividers, And so what's cool about coffee is, everybody drinks coffee. I mean, not
Yeah.
everybody, but it's
has an idea of it.
it's up there for one of the most consumed
Yeah.
social parts of Western culture. And I like the idea that we can enter a market that seemed to be steering more and more towards a certain type of person, and say we want to wreck that model.
Yeah.
And we want to, and that, like I said, that doesn't mean politics, although it can.
Yeah.
It most certainly can. It can be it can be from a spiritual side to a non-spiritual side. It can be from a politics to a non-political side. It can be from an occupational side. So
Yeah.
I think that it's common now to see shops with these amazing coffees that so much care and things go into, but you're gonna reach, or you're gonna be aiming for a very certain type of clientele.
Yeah.
The creative, the artist, someone who wants to identify with that. Where I like that, but I also love John, who's working on the construction site,
Yeah.
that he would stop at Speedway if it was closer to here, but we're closer.
Right.
But while you're here, we want you to try the best coffee you've ever had in
Yeah.
your life. And it's not going to be $10 coffee, so you're feeling a certain way about losing $8 because you couldn't find a Speedway. It's not only am I getting something that is affordable, but why would now my eyes are open. Like you were saying before, once you see, you can't unsee.
Yeah.
And a lot of things you think you're missing. Like it's funny, my father always tells me a story about the first time he got glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people that never have had glasses before, they don't think that there's anything wrong with their sight.
Mm-hmm.
And they put their glasses on for the first time, and it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
those have words on them, or trees have such and such. Or so it's not the fact that you're missing something because you didn't know, but we want to bring that to people that experience coffee. We want everyone to have the best possible coffee they can. We want everybody to love what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's so important. That's so much more important to me than a club, than
Yeah.
a coffee club. Not that coffee clubs are bad.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Steve Jobs, when he was going to release, I think it was either the iPod or it had to have been the iPod. I don't think it was the iPhone, but he is known to be quoted. I don't know if he actually said this, but I've heard that he's been known to be quoted that said people were trying to tell him that nobody's asking for this, nobody wants it, and he said they don't know that they want it because they haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
They haven't experienced it yet. And quotes like that always get me excited about whatever I want to put out. Like I want to create something that people don't know that they want until they have that first sip. And kind of that was my experience with coffee, and I want to reciprocate that in other people. Be like, my first experience was like, I had no idea it was gonna be like this, but at the same time, I'm grateful for I used to be that guy, just because of the culture I was in, that I'd be like, oh, I don't do Starbucks and all this stuff and Dunkin' Donuts and this, and somebody told me, he goes, no, I'm grateful for Starbucks, because we wouldn't have what we have today when it comes to the third wave world and even fourth wave and all the things that are happening with coffee if it wasn't for places like Starbucks.
Absolutely.
Taking a bold step to do something different than just your normal canned coffee on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. So I kind of want to ask a question. Is so our head roaster and the founder of our parent coffee roasting company, Aporia Coffee, Wade Reed.
Yeah.
Brilliant guy when it comes to coffee stuff. When was your first exposure to him on the scene or in the industry? When was that?
Yeah, so I first met Wade, had to have been when I was working at Pour, Glen Edith. He was starting his own thing. Fifth Frame with some friends.
So it must have been after he was at Joby.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I might have met him, had something from him at Joby prior to that, or but they came in and did a couple things with us at Glen Edith pour. I don't know the timeline of it. It must have been pour going into Glen Edith when we switched over to that. And so that was my first experience, just like talking with this man of wisdom that just has so much in his brain when it comes to coffee. And, I try to have that kind of wisdom, but it doesn't always stay there. I can tell you so much about coffee, but there's certain people that just like they bleed it. They bleed brown water, So, and Wade is one of those guys, and he knows what he's talking about. He has wonderful. I would say he has a genuine heart for people in the world who are producing the coffee, and you don't see that a lot within the coffee world. It's just, and a lot of the times people are just uneducated when it comes to where your beans coming from, or who's producing them, or who's doing all the processes of it. And he's one that wants to connect with people,
and he cares that you're educated.
Exactly.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because the reason why you're even sitting at this table was a pretty unique situation. So, the opportunity for using this space and developing this space, interestingly enough, we wanted to open up a food and beverage business in currently the town that I reside in now, Churchville, New York. We wanted to open up a project there. We had our eyes set on doing that. We thought that would make sense. Wade was, roasting for a number of different coffee shops in the area, and we thought that's one we'll roast for ourselves. And the opportunity to take over this space that we're in right now, take control of it, was, well, why wouldn't we have a flagship in our own city? Like where there's other coffee shops. There was a coffee shop in here at one point. We thought it would be a pretty decent place to launch in it, and we thought at the time that it wasn't going to be too much work to get it done, even if we were revamping the whole front of house and all that stuff. But he wound up having an idea for a couple people that would be a good fit for the role, and right from round one, he was like, do you know Josiah? And I'm like, I know of him, and I know that we have a ton of similar circles, especially in the in the faith-based community, and like there was a lot of church overlap that like you and I had shared. But it was interesting. He said, I'll step into the role because it makes the most sense for me to start, but it would be great. He listed a couple of people, but he said, it would be fantastic to get you involved in the project. And so if somebody who is like Wade saying that, I don't need any more. I don't. I'm like, okay. So like I reach out to you and you're like, I'm good. I mean, I'd love to talk, but I'm really good. And I knew where you were, and as one believer to another, and you were working for this other coffee company that was a faith-based, non-for-profit. The last thing I ever wanted to do was pull you out of a calling. Yeah. That was someplace that you were meant to be. And, I remember having that first, sit down here, and I told you, I was very transparent about that. I was like, you know what? I would never do that to another business, especially a business like that. But we just were talking. Yeah. And when we left it, I was like, man, he's perfect. Yeah. He's perfect for this role. And then like it was like 2 weeks later, you called me and you're like, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, yep. Yeah. And it just from there, and like it was such a divine moment there that like I knew that this is the direction that we should be going, because the last thing that I want to do is create this thing, and I want to get into why I created this, but then have a face to it that doesn't want to represent me. Yeah. Because this table represents me. Yeah. That counter represents me. The lights are, and so just not to put too much out there, but the way I feel about this space is it's me sharing with you. I want to share who I am with you.
Yeah.
I want to share all of my interests with you. I want to share my aesthetic with you, my passion for design, my passion for coffee, my passion for the kinds of, relationships and people that, that come through the doors. Like even like the cocktail program and the artisan, mindset of doing things in a bespoke way, like the concrete, like a concrete furniture business that I have. Like everything I have lives and breathes kind of who I am.
Yeah.
And this is a way for me to share it. And in the way that I actually kind of arrived at that philosophy was, I went to school for audio engineering. So I was always into music production, the science of audio, and I always had like an affinity to like stereo systems and that kind of thing. And I always had wanted to visit what they call like a Japanese listening bar.
Okay.
And so this Japanese listening bar concept from my understanding at the time was a place where the focus wasn't on the good time.
Mhm.
It was a very Eastern approach to we're here for a very specific reason, and that is to experience audio at the very highest levels.
Wow.
And so they had these bars, and I said I'd like to go to one, and I was at a furniture design workshop in Napa Valley, and I said while we're here to my wife, let's go. Much more chance that there's going to be something
Right.
between there and San Francisco, where it's on the West Coast, closer, like. Maybe we can find something, and we found. I'm gonna give a shout out to Harlan Records, which is this cocktail bar that looked like what my understanding of a Japanese listening bar would be like. And we booked a hotel right next to it just to check it out. And so we went there, and it was an off night, and we actually got to sit down with the owner for quite a while.
Wow.
And talk about his philosophy. And so that's where So what they did was they had a hi-fi system behind the bar, and the bartender, the owner, would share vinyl with his guests. And the reason why that they came to that spot was during COVID. He was working at another very high-end cocktail bar that everybody would know, and when the things shut down, he opened up his garage to have his friends come over, and he was telling me this. He was narrating the story to me, and he was saying, "I just wanted to share with people. Like I wanted to share people like this cocktail that I created, this music that I created." And I was like, I wanted it to be. I was like, you know what? That concept could be really cool if the scales of that were balanced more towards coffee. That still had a cocktail program, but it was meant to be more coffee community driven,
Right.
but still have the cocktails, still have the vinyl. And so that's when the thought process started coming alive, that I wanted a place where that just spoke who I was.
Yeah.
And be able to share those things with my friends. And a big part of that too is the kind of person that you are. Like you want to share people like a very openness, a very generous mindset, a very open arms kind of thing. And so that's what we set out to do. And on the other side of that, I had all these different ideas came together in this kind of concept that seems like it's all over the place, but it gets tied together with a contradiction of being high end, but very approachable by everyone. And that's kind of like Aporia comes from like the philosophy of being a contradiction. AM, FM, the brand is here, comes from a very dual meaning kind of like, what does AM, FM mean? AM, FM means, you got information on the radio on one side, and then you have like entertainment on the other, the AM and the FM. It kind of plays to the AM morning crowd, like on a AM, PM on a clock. FM has other meanings like forward motion. So, always moving forward, always growing. And I've just figured as many different, not polarizing, but as many different opposite ends of the spectrum that we can bring together without being in the middle.
Yeah.
Is a kind of new concept.
It's kind of like being the people, like become all things for all people.
Yeah.
Taking that scripture. And, my dad used to say to me all the time, if I were to prepare a sermon or something, I'd be like nervous, like I don't know who's going to be there. And he goes, "You preach to who's in front of you." And I think you even take that same concept to here. It's like I'm a serve for
Yes.
who's ever coming in front of me. The person who's in a three-piece suit, the person who's in work boots, and the person who may haven't showered in weeks. You know,
Yeah.
like we're serving to whoever comes in here, and giving them a experience that they're going to walk away and feel loved and feel cared for and enjoy what they're receiving.
Absolutely. Well, when I first, in 2010, when I purchased this building, the philosophy of that business at that time was we loved what Lux Lounge offered,
Mm-hmm.
which was this kind of eccentric environment where it would not be uncommon to see somebody with the craziest outfit sitting next to a guy in a tailored suit.
Yeah.
Like that was not abnormal, and that's the kind of thing where you want to be down in with all kinds of all people, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And so, actually, interestingly enough, the business we tried to run out of here, which ran for 6 years, was a nightclub.
Yeah.
And our vision was to always have a setting where the same was true for a different kind of business. So it wasn't just like the neighborhood bar; it was like more of a music venue kind of thing. But that's now what we're trying to do with
Yeah.
the coffee side of things. And what's interesting is that I love breakfast sandwiches. I love breakfast. And the place that all of us contractors, because I come from that world as well, used to get breakfast was a grab and go place that's on the corner of Mount Reed and Buffalo Road, which is called Wegmans Quick Fill. Ironically, it's not Wegmans or
Right.
Quick Fill, but they just have a grab and go box like this, and there's a line out the door, and they're meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
It's not a $15 breakfast sandwich.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a place for those, and you'll find those on our menu, but you'll also find a $7, $8
Yeah.
sandwich that's, it's
Quality.
great. It's
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah.
It'll fill you up, and that's the goal.
Mhm.
We never want to have everything on the menu, so it's to the point where I have to spend a lot of money. It's like you can spend a lot of money, but if you don't want to, we have something at the very most value centric
Yeah.
area. So there's something for everyone. So don't come in and complain. You can't come in and complain that everything's
Yeah.
overpriced because you can get a $2 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Something that's very approachable. But yeah, I think we're achieving the goals that we want. I love the team.
Yeah.
Like, I love people. Like, if you were to talk about what my skills are, I don't really have the highest skills in any one thing. I would say that you're very people oriented. I mean, I am too, but where you're really passionate about the actual coffee community. Wade's very passionate about the science of roasting. I would say that I like to see things happen.
Yeah.
Like, I like to, and I think that when you were talking earlier about different kinds of people and jobs and other leaders, I've always had a knack for kind of seeing things at the end and being like, how do we get there? Like, how do we reverse engineer that? And that's not that any one kind of person is more valuable than others, but even there's a big difference between people that are very vision centric
Yeah.
as opposed to like leadership centric. And you need both, because sometimes people that are can see forever down the road and are able to talk about that and speak that in. You need people that are leaders to make
Get
it
there.
happen, get you,
Ground it.
and then yeah, to ground you. And there's people that need to be the people doing the work with their
Yeah.
hands, and so I've always liked to think about life and all the projects that I work on is a painting, and like what person is what kind of color that I need. Like, it's funny, I always heard a thing saying, well, what are your favorite keys on the keyboard? The white ones, the black ones. It's like, well, you need both.
Yeah.
Like, they're different.
Right.
You need them. And you need all kinds of people. And I've more than anything enjoyed putting the people in the room, saying like, Josiah's amazing at this. Wade's amazing at this. Jamie's amazing at this. Travis is amazing at this. I need to do some work for sure.
Yeah.
But more or less, I need to be the hub in that wheel where I'm facilitating relationships and ideas and just spurring, the spontaneity
Yeah.
or whatever is happening, the magic that happens in that room. And I love that more than anything. And I think it has to do with my passion for people
Yeah.
connecting. But there's some people that always want to be a part of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just happy putting you and you together and seeing what magic happens. And
Absolutely.
anything I can do, I'd love to be a part of, but I'm not, I'm not a leader. And so AM/FM is a project where that happens. And the other thing that I would say that is very important to me is a concept that you'll be able to relate to is testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel as a kingdom-minded person that what we produce should be our testimony.
Yeah.
Not just a pretty good, but if you can be, and I don't mean in a striving fashion, but we want to make things that are excellent.
Yeah.
We want things to be the best so that they know that they come from a very special place, that they come from a very different kind of place.
Yeah.
And that's the testimony that I want us to have as we share these things with other people.
Yeah.
Not that it's pretty good coffee, not that it's some of the best coffee, not that it's some, but like,
It's the best.
it's the best.
Yeah.
Wow. Whatever you guys are doing, you're doing something that's amazing.
Yeah.
And we want to be a part of it, whether that's participating with a cup or whether that's participating with our, our work and our hands or, and that's something that's very important about, AM/FM and what we're doing here.
Yeah, just last Friday I made a lady a cortado and they came in like, never been here before, we're just been passing by and thought we'd stop in, and I was like, well, welcome, like, have any questions, we got this, and they looked over the food menu and they're like, oh, we may come back for food one day, we just need something quick, and what do you have? And I told them, like, we have cortados, we have this, you can just get black coffee, it's all, and we ordered cortados, and they were leaving, and she goes, that was the best coffee I've ever had. And I was just like, that's great.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
That's
so
what we want.
and they said they'd be back,
So big plans for the future. Obviously, a lot of people ask about what's going on the other side.
Yeah.
A little bit of AM/FM we've touched on is that it has what we will call a duality, two kind of not opposing sides, two different ends of a line, of a spectrum that are the best of what they are, the hottest of the hot, the coldest of the cold.
Yeah.
And kind of what we planned out when we did this floor plan was that there were going to be two sides. There was going to be a side where you have a very quick experience getting in, getting out, but at the same time can have a very human interaction, and that human interaction doesn't have to take a long time to do. Order at the counter, grab and go, every kind of profession and walk can come in and grab something, can find something in their price point. And then the other side, which we have not opened yet, which is going to be more of a sit down experience, not necessarily with wait staff, although we might do special events where we have wait staff, is more of a pull your laptop out. Yeah. And actually on that side, we're going to have order yourself from the kiosks. One of the things that we saw during COVID was, there was a desire. Some people had the desire that they needed human interaction. And they discovered that very quickly, and they wanted to have those conversations. They realized that self-checkout groceries were not their thing. Yeah. And they needed to go any place that they could to not experience that. So that's where you go one side to the cafe and get that. The other side, which I understand as well, is with everything so up in the air, I don't really want to be around people. I want to order my own food. I want to have my own interaction with the touch screen. I want to sit down and be left alone. That's kind of the other side. Yeah. Or meeting with a group of people. So there's even dualities in the same space. As we grow, one of the things that we're looking forward to is yet another duality where this is a very kind of date night, hustle, bustle, city daytime office worker kind of space in the metropolitan area of Rochester. The duality sister cafe to this will be in Churchville, New York, which was originally my plan of where I want to open. which is going to have the same kind of feel. It's going to have the same kind of menu. There'll be different weights on different items. So the coffee volume will probably be a lot higher. The food will be more of an actual sit down menu. It's sitting right on a creek. It's going to be encouraged to bring all the kids, parking lot, unload the van, let the kids romp around, get ice cream. So it'd be another duality. And interesting enough, the address here is 45 Euclid. The address over there is 54 Main Street.
Yeah.
So it's just so many little, Easter eggs that run through everything. And the more that they show up, the more we do them intentionally as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're trying to do all of that. But excited for the future, excited for the players. Everything is going as planned.
Yeah.
It was a little crazy to be opening up right before Christmas and through January and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's really good to have all of the menu items if everything worked out.
Yeah.
So that when we go high volume out in Churchville, we've got this figured out.
Got it done.
We've got it dialed in, and yeah. So that's when we open that up in the spring.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be another good thing.